Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, I'm Lewis Prince. Got up on the screen. I'm going to be talking today about text analysis using Azure's language AI service. There'll be a difference why this is advertised as a cognitive AI services and the AI services. I noticed a couple of weeks back that Microsoft have gone through and they've changed the name of the service to AI services. And I presume this is the back of the big boost in the AI being a kind of a buzzword and a key term at the moment. So I thought I'd get and explain that out of the way first of all. But before I kind of get into everything, I thought trying to explain is I find that title a bit reductive in what I've said. What I'm really trying to do today is going to say how passionate I am and how everyone should be passionate about the democratization of AI. And that's what language AI, not just language AI services, but Azure's AI services in general are. They're a pathway to people new to AI, new to more advanced coding in Python, etc., to get into intelligent solutions that AI can offer and get off the road running and put stuff in place in quite an easy environment. So without further ado, you can find me anywhere on LinkedIn and Twitter, Lewis Prince. My blog site, datarhino@wordpress.com, a couple of blogs on there about AI in general. And I do blog for Purple Frog Systems, my workplace as well. And you will find on there a 5-part blog series on this particular topic in general. So if you don't quite keep track of what I would say today in the demos later on, there is a very intensive blog post series I made, which will go through in a lot more detail, the processes and the theory behind the techniques I'm going to put in place, as well as the practicality of how to use them, how to use the studios, how to navigate the Azure's AI services in general. So a bit more information about who I am. I'm a machine learning developer, more AI nowadays, for a company called Purple Frog Systems. We're based in the UK by Birmingham and the gateway to Wales. And we do anything from data engineering, Power BI development, machine learning and AI, and intelligent solutions in general. I'm a certified Microsoft data scientist and AI engineer associate. And in addition to that, I've worked in the data industry for roughly 6 years now, primarily through VBA initially, then R, SQL, Spark, and Python more modernly. And again, if you want to find me, reach out. Any questions that we can't answer at the end of the session, connect me on LinkedIn, find me on Twitter, and keep following my blog posts. That QR code will take you directly to my blog post site. So, kind of where this session today came from, it's from a use case I had from dealing with a client, as well as just kind of creating proof of concept of what AI can do and navigating the AI services in terms of how it can be best used. And the use case today would be extracting as much information as possible from a text-based data source. So in this example, we'll be using online reviews. In particular, it will be a set of reviews I got from Trustpilot on the shopping retailer Lidl. So I've got them stored in a CSV, and we'll be kind of pushing them up to the Language Studio AI service, running inferences on them, getting more data out, more textual data, and kind of just digging below the surface of what these reviews say, and then pushing in the end into a Power BI dashboard to kind of emphasize the power of how much more information we can get from text-based sources, and how much more information we can make, and how much easier we can make inferring on text-based data by using such thing as the Azure AI services. And in particular, we'll be using these 3 techniques I've highlighted to the right: keyword analysis, sentiment mining, and opinion mining. And that's something I call the holy trinity of natural language processing to me. When I'm going to do natural language processing, these are the first 3 things I throw at and in my data. So, kind of how this is going to work. We'll explain what natural language processing is first and discuss that. Then keyword analysis. we'll talk about sentiment analysis, opinion mining, what that is and why it's useful. And we'll kind of delve into why I've put them as a topic together, because they're very closely related. I'll discuss what the Azure AI services are and what Language Studio is in particular within those Azure AI services. And then we'll dig into the demos. So first of all, we'll go through the Language Studio, how to navigate that, how we can find certain things, find kind of key documentation that help us get off the ground, and get using the service. And then I'll go an end-to-end demo from the CSVs of the little reviews all the way to the Power BI dashboard. We won't run the Python today because it can take some time, but I will go for it quite, not briefly, but not in depth, to kind of scare you all the way. And just to show you that exactly what I'm getting for the documentation that Microsoft had there is what I've used today with a few tweaks. So what is natural language processing? So it's useful to kind of think already about a definition of what a natural language is. So a natural language is anything that has, or any language that has naturally come to be over the history of human history. Be that English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, they're all natural languages. And this excludes any manufactured languages such as Python, Java, coding languages. So kind of the way I think different to these is they're not language where we can push emotions, expressions, ideas, and that's what it's kind of conveyed by a natural language, is the conveyance of ideas and expressions. And that doesn't go to say, so I've had questions before, where would this work on stuff like Klingon or Esperanto, which technically are manufactured languages. But I think there are cases. So I think after a demo the other day, someone had gone to ChatGPT and got it to do some natural language processing on Klingon, but that's not a capability in Copilot, for example. So there is stuff out there when manufactured language can work with this sort of thing. It just depends on where the use case is and if it's built in as a use case in certain places. So now we know what natural language processing is, we'll talk about a definition. So it's a branch of artificial intelligence, deals with allowing computers to understand text and spoken words. And we as people, we process natural language every day. So as I'm talking to you now, we're processing natural language. You understand what I'm saying. I'm forming thoughts and kind of processing how to say that in a natural language, that being English. There's many example applications of natural language processing, such as translation. So stuff like Google Translate, text-to-speech capabilities. So a lot of people that are mute or have non-verbal conditions make use of text-to-speech abilities where they can type in and it will be spoken. It's a form of natural language processing. Social media analysis. So big companies will go through and trying to get the sentiment or opinions that are put out there about their companies on stuff like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, and text creation as well. And this has been quite a hot topic recently with ChatGPT. Kind of when I go to speak in schools about AI, it's a lot of teachers getting me to tell them stop using ChatGPT to write their homework and their essays, etc. And it's a big example of a natural language processing kind of changing certain industries and landscapes, like a school and education in that regard. But also, I think marketing and other industries where the creation of innovative kind of wordings and copywriting is the kind of bread and butter of those industries. So that's another place where natural language processing is coming in as a big application. And it's a bit more widespread, and it goes back a lot longer than we previously thought, or you may previously think. So text prediction on our phones. I think the first time I kind of saw this was in my Motorola Razr when I was a small child. So that is natural language processing. It's predicting based on context what may come next. And the same for spell check on our computers, however long that's been about. It is natural language processing to get the context of the grammar. If words are spelled correctly in a certain context, like the difference between the three theirs in English understanding which is the correct spelling, depending on where it is in the paragraph in a sentence. As well as email filtering, kind of taking your spam out. It needs to understand what language is being used and how that language is created to spam. And then going on to Siri, kind of understanding what we say to them, phones, and spitting out kind of responses got off the internet. Search engines as well, voice to text features, Google Translate. It's all natural language processing, and it's been about how long we would think where AI has really been embedded in our lives in this form of certain branch of AI. So let's move on to getting a definition of what keyword analysis is. And it kind of is what it is in the tin. It's the extraction of keywords from text, be it automatically or not, in terms of how we apply the methodologies. But it usually works on the basis of grabbing the most used and most important words and expressions from a piece of text. And I like to key in on the most used part of this. So if you're fresh to the kind of field, you think, well, the most used words are going to be stuff like the, a, there, them, because. And it's an important point to make that within AI and natural language, those kind of words like there, then, there, at, because are something we call stop words. So it's kind of fluff that kind of makes up a sentence and connects together the ideas and expressions and emotions we're trying to create with the spoken word and written words. And so when natural language processes are put in place, it usually discounts these stop words. So that's how it finds the bare context, the meat and bones of words and text, is kind of removing them and seeing what's left over, what of them is said most often. And usually in the most basic of approaches for this, they will detect what's most important by how many times that's used in a piece of text. But again, that's not always very important to a business. So if I was approaching something like Lidl, when they kind of would do natural language processing for reviews or any text base they have, obviously Lidl will be said a lot in that regard. So we want to infer that Lidl's a very important word. We'd expect that to be in there. So technically speaking, that would be a quasi stop word based on the context. And so that's where more complex algorithms come in place, where they learn from previous examples. So a good example of this is email filtering. When you have an email or some sort of update come from a company that you want to see in your inbox, but it's gone to the spam, it's gone to your junk mail, and you can go in and say, Outlook, this isn't spam, this is not junk, put it back on my inbox. And then it will go back and say, well, what made that different to what's already in junk? What makes it similar to what's in the inbox? And it kind of learns that this should be in the inbox. Where did I make a mistake? What kind of patterns can I pick up from that and then move on? So the next time I come across something similar to that email, I won't put it in junk next time. So that's an example of a more complex approach. Now, I've said a lot of things there, but the purple frog, sorry to be cheesy, didn't really understand what I've said. And he's like, have you got an example? He's a visual learner. And so, yeah, I have got an example, and it's something I've taken off the documentation online. When we get later on, there's kind of studios where you can try this stuff out. So I've kind of keep it familiar. I've put an example out, and you could tell it's a Microsoft example because his family is staying at the Contoso Hotel. So if anyone's done any Microsoft Learns or anything involved in Microsoft examples, Contoso comes up a lot. But in essence, this is a review of a visit to Hollywood, Los Angeles. So we take this chunk of text and it will be fed into keyword analysis, and something like this will be thrown out. And this is quite a nice GUI that Microsoft put in place for this. In reality, the API in the background spits out a JSON. So a lot of the demo later on, we'll look at the Python, is going to deal into how you do go through and get information from JSON formats. Hopefully, a lot of people can be familiar with that. If not, when we get to it, I'll kind of explain what JSON is as a nested structure and how it's easy to kind of infer through and cycle through and get the information you want from those sort of things. But you can see it's pulled out a load of key phrases, and you can kind of infer a journey. And you can see what I mean by the fluff in between being taken out. It kind of makes it pretty to the ear, or to be read on, the kind of stuff in between. But you get the main thoughts, the main feelings, ideas being pushed by the larger text, by these key phrases extracted. So hopefully that's kind of got over what keyword analysis is, and what it tries to achieve. Before moving on to what sentiment analysis and opinion mining is. So a sentiment is kind of what we feel. It's an emotion and attitude, and that's something we attach to words and phrases. So if I was to say to you, and I'd just been to Disneyland, and I said, I really love Disneyland, it's the best place on earth. You know that's something I'm speaking positively about Disneyland, and that's a positive sentiment from the text. So what sentiment analysis does is try to automate that extraction to get a computer to understand what makes a piece of text positive, negative, a mix of these, or kind of unstated, or not neither positive or negative, kind of neutral. So that is what sentiment analysis is in a nutshell. And then moving on to opinion mining, I said they're related, and I refer to opinion mining as kind of the child of sentiment analysis, the 2.0, and it kind of goes one level deeper and gets what Microsoft and the kind of industry called aspect-based sentiments. And it's the more granular information that makes up, in a larger paragraph, that positive sentiment. So it'd be that by sentence sentiment, but even going more in depth, what words or opinions in this regard are kind of forming that sentiment, that positive or negative sentiment, and furthermore, what are those opinions being targeted upon? So when I said Disneyland is the greatest place on earth, greatest is an opinion, it's positive. That's what's kind of forcing that positive sentiment overall, and the target is Disneyland. So the opinion is being targeted onto Disneyland. So again, I've said a lot of words there, and the purple frog is a visual thing learner, and he's gone and got a picture to help us out, kind of get this point across. And again, it's something I've got from the Microsoft documentation, and it kind of really greatly shows the difference between sentiment analysis and opinion mining, and what they aim to achieve. So the sentence: the room was great, but the staff was unfriendly. The sentiment analysis pulls out as a negative sentiment, and you may be thinking, but there's positive and negative things said there. Why is that negative overall? And I'll come on to that in a second. And you see in opinion mining, I said positive and negative things have been said, and the opinion mining has picked that up. So he's taken that more granular kind of negative sentiment and broke it up and said what are the negative bits, what are the positive bits, and what these things have been said about. So if we would look at this in relation to the negative sentiment, and this is common with ML and AI use in general, nothing's ever a 1 or a 0. It's kind of quasi-fudgy logic, if people are familiar with that, in terms of how decisions are made. And it's kind of a classification between 2 or 3 kind of choices of mixed, positive, negative, neutral in regard to the AI service language demo. And you'll find that for this sentence, it probably came through and said, well, I think this sentence is 30% negative, based on the staff are unfriendly. But I think it's 70% positive. So it acknowledges under the hood that's pushed out. And you'll see that in the JSON of whatever happened with this, the kind of JSON output of the API we called upon. It'll have that data stored, the confidence levels in its kind of application of negative or positive. And because it was more confident on it being a negative sentiment, that's what has come out overall. But you can see the usefulness of kind of digging deeper into it with opinion mining, hopefully. So I'm going to start speeding up a bit because I'm going to spend a lot more time on that than I thought I should. What are these Azure AI services? This is what Microsoft kind of put a definition onto them. But in my head, it's a bit verbose and it takes away from what it core I think use case of it is, and I think it's a suite of tools that are easily accessible, and they give you the tools to make them easily accessible. They can get you doing AI faster and in an easy way. Sometimes in a low code to no code kind of format, or where it requires a bit more code, they give you the stuff to get going faster. So I think the big key lines are modernize and get your business processes faster. So what it is to me, it's a way of a place where you can get access to AI in a simple and accessible way. Is what the AI services are to me. And they cover many things from OpenAI after the big buy of a stake by Microsoft, document intelligence analysis. So if you have time after the demo later on, I've got another couple of demos we could go into if we do have the time, because I think it's a nice area the AI services offer in terms of kind of automating retrieval of information from invoices, receipts, ID documents. It's really speeding up processes where documents are manually entered. Search. So this is bespoke search services. So in your company, if you've got loads of kind of spreadsheets or Word documents on processes, it's allowing your front-end not front-end customers, but like front-end support employees to get access and ask questions, rather than to go through a couple of emails to get that answer. I'll keep clicking through now, but your bot services like chatbots, vision, identifying things in pictures and images automatically, audio and video. This is kind of creating subtitles on the fly, but also creating audio and video for kind of these concepts. Speech, which covers the kind of speech to text stuff I was talking about earlier. Anomaly detector. This kind of understanding kind of real-time processing, time series, etc., and kind of creating an image up of what is out of the ordinary and what isn't. So useful for like production lines, anything it's keep track of stuff in real time. Translator, as I came over earlier, Google Translate would be a big example. Metrics Advisor, and the big one we're talking about today, language. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the demos now. If I close this down, I should have this in the background. Great. So this is kind of the front end of the Azure AI services. Just to confirm, everyone, is that big enough for everyone? Just can put a hand up in the chat. I'm assuming it's okay. I'll go ahead. And you can see it's all the kind of stuff I spoke about earlier, into the computer vision stuff, speech services, content moderators, document intelligence, the translator, etc. And you can see the one we're kind of interested in today is the language service. You can click create or view, and that shows you what you've already got provisioned in the language service. So we're going to click on that. We've got the example I've got today, demo, just so I know to delete it afterwards. I'll click on open. And you kind of get these three nice tags underneath and the language studio to get to here. And you'll find a lot of these have language studios kind of as an interface to get to the services and use them. So like the vision, the document intelligence, Microsoft have given you a nice GUI studio of what you've provisioned. And again, it adds to kind of that accessibility and democratization, as opposed to just a code first kind of environment. So we click here, and it kind of gives you a brief run through of what is available within the language studio. Develop gives you the endpoints and the API keys to use, sample code as well, of getting in and accessing what we want to do for extracting information or classifying text. And then the language studio, which you have already popped up over here. So when you come in, you can see it kind of breaks everything down into core areas. And you'll see we've got extract key phrases here. So you can click try it out. And as long as you've got it provisioned, you can go in and try this out. You'll notice I've got it on a free tier. So another great thing I want to point out with Microsoft doing these things, they provide a free tier for all the AI services, and it's just a lower kind of throughput per monthly model of using these sort of things. And I have in the past, where a use case for a customer has been small enough, kept them on these free tiers. So it is viable to have these in a smaller case, but it's also viable to just go in and test this out free of charge and kind of dip your toe into the AI kind of pool, so to say. So they give you an example. They give you examples here, or you can type your own in. So let's pick one that looks cool. So another trip, and that is the trip I put out earlier and showed in my PowerPoint slides. So we click run. Let's go into the API, and you see the kind of output I pushed in the PowerPoint earlier. And this is where we kind of see that JSON format, which gets pushed out under the hood. And I kind of go into a bit of detail now in terms of what JSON is. And it's a nested format, kind of storing data, where you kind of access by levels. So here I click in and say I want documents, and I say documents.id, which spit out ID 607. But if I go even deeper, say documents.key phrases, would give me all of these key phrases. So it's a very simple JSON data frame, data set. At the moment, when we get to central analysis, you'll see how much more complex this can be. You can have a quick start as well. So click on that quick start, it'll take you to a lot of information and as how to use what key phrase extraction is. And if you click this quick start here again, it'll take you through all the code. The C#, JavaScript, Java, Python are all available to be used for this. If you scroll down, it's going to show you how to create the resource from scratch for a language resource, and give you the code to set up environments, variables, and then the code in general, which when we get to my VS Code example later on, is exactly what I've put in there, except I've changed it to kind of rifle through that CSV and use it line by line, as opposed to just putting that one document in. So that's the only change I've made. Going back to Language Studio again, drop back, and then we'll find and classify text, the analyze sentiment, and mine opinions. So we'll click try out again. And again, it's on the free tier. We'll click something, examples. You can drag your own things in or type them in yourself. We click run. That's not great. It looks like I've just hit the quote of the free tier. Okay, demo gods have not been nice for you there. But it's kind of exactly what I showed you earlier in terms of it'll spit out what the sentiment's going to be for that piece of text, and the opinion mines. I've got a small example in my VS Code, so it's not the end of the world. But again, we can go to open the quick start guide, and this one takes you straight to the code. It gives you another code example. So this is nearly identical to what I've put into the VS Code example, which I'll show in a second, to get this data out. And it kind of, we can see the navigation of the JSON structure here. So for a document, it's going in and getting document.confidence scores, sentence.confidence scores for the target that's in stuff. So you can see it's a very, if you're used to kind of coding, kind of having a variable and then dot and having evidence available within that kind of that structure, then clicking that again and getting what's available in the next kind of level of the JSON. And so when we get to the VS Code example, hopefully I'll make more sense when I get out some data. So moving on to kind of the review analysis demo. Bring the Excel in. So this is an Excel of, it's a CSV in reality, of all reviews I got from Trustpilot for Lidl. So there's an ID attached. You have a title of the review, your text of the review, what the rating was, and what date that review was submitted onto the Trustpilot website. And when I did this, I think I pulled all the reviews from January the 21st, 20th of January 2023 back as long as I could in time. So we've got a fair chunk of reviews there, just over 3.5k reviews. So it's a decent amount. So for the first step, we'll take these reviews and we'll put them into the code, which I've got here. And you'll see this is very similar to what we saw on the Microsoft site. So I've made very few changes. Just the fact that I wanted to take whatever document I put in up here, as opposed to just the client authorization, say, variable. And what in essence it is, if no one's familiar with Python, is pulling in a couple of libraries, and these are kind of repositories of tools we can use in the code. So pandas is stuff usually used for kind of dealing with data frames. It's quite big in the data engineering kind of manipulating data frames. NumPy is like NumPython, and it provides kind of mathematical operations. And then JSON, which allows us to kind of deal with the JSON data we have. And again, it's installing a library particular to the text analytics. And we go through and we create two functions. One that authenticates the client. That's there. You don't need to make any changes to that from what is given to you by Microsoft and as quick start guides. And what that really is taking the key and endpoint, which we saw earlier on the language kind of provision resource I had provisioned. It's there, clear to see. You pull out, and it goes to the API and says, "Hello, here's my key. Here's where I want to go to. Let me through, please." And it'll go, "Yes," because you've got the key. It's correct. So that's what that's really doing. It's kind of knocking on a door. Someone's coming out and going, "Yeah, okay, you're cool. Come on in." And then this function to extract the key phrases. All this really is, the response goes to the client that's allowed us in and uses this command, which is extract key phrases, where we say the document is a document we're putting in. And then it checks to make sure that nothing's gone wrong. And if it's correct, it'll get every phrase in the response. So every key phrase in the response will get out. And then we want to put that in a list variable, which is kind of a collection of just text over and over in one kind of variable, which would be outside that function. So then here we read in our data, so that Lidl's reviews.csv. We make these lists. So the first of all, make a list. This is where I wanted the title and the text to be together, because the title holds a lot of information as well. So further information as to what could be felt and what has been expressed. So I kind of compounded them together to make one kind of big textual data source per line. And then ID and phrases is where we can collect per phrase what review that came from using the IDs in the little scrape. So using these IDs. So when we get to Power BI later on, we can link this all together in the data model. And then we do the run using this function we made earlier. And I'll go through each line in that CSV and split the key phrases into these lists. And then using these lists, we'll put into a data frame, which we can then push out as a CSV and export. And we get something like this. Pull it over. And you can see for review 1, it pulled out these keywords. So stuff like Cumberland sausage, 1 bite, additional filling, etc. So we can see that's kind of worked. It's pulled out what we want and it's connected them. So hopefully at this point you can see where this is going to go. and how does this work in the Power BI report. So the next point we want to make is go through the keyword mining, sentiment and opinion mining. And again, very similar format. It's pretty much identical to the code you get from the documentation, except there's a lot more to store. So we're getting the reviews, the sentiment of these reviews. As I said, when we go to the opinion mining, it's breaking down this review into sentences and getting the sentiment of sentences. And then within those sentences, pulling out the targets of assessments or opinions and what the sentiment of those opinions are. So hopefully this makes more sense when I show you the CSV pushed out. So we get the data in again, because it's a new function, it's a new script, so it won't hold that over. And then again, we authenticate, no change to that. I'll make it so it works on more than one document, like I said previously for the keyword extraction. And then we call the client analyze sentiment. That's the function command you to do this. And then we go through for each document, we get the sentence, and you'll see here document.sentences. That's going from the JSON structure from what we showed earlier, document, and then within that kind of square bracket, I'll have sentence and all the sentences in there. So we said, give me that kind of chunk of the JSON with all the sentences. And then within that sentence, we want to know what opinions were mined. So again, I have all these sentences where it's got a structure saying mined opinions. Give me all that data there as well in this structure. And then of those mined opinions, give me the target, and then give me the assessments. So there'll be two kind of another sections within that, and then append it all to the list again to make a data frame. And this kind of, I've broken it down into more detail here, so you can kind of see where we're getting this stuff from. So the first print is document.sentences. So this is the JSON structure where it's got all those sentences, and you can go sentence.text here, and you get that text. Sentence.sentiment, and I'll give you that positive. And going in furthermore, if we grab sentence.mind opinions, it gives you all the mind opinions in there, and everything goes from that. So mind opinion.assessment, as I said earlier, would give you this kind of chunk here and all that further detail. So I hope that makes sense in terms of how you can mine into this sort of detail, this information. And it gives you out something like this. So a lot of data on the screen. The reason Excel's not playing ball there. Oh, that's not great. Okay, it's not essential. We can show you this in the Power BI report. We'll go for the data sets. So this is kind of the output of what was in that Excel. It's been pulled in. You can see you get stuff like the rating, the review in general, the sentiment of that review, the sentences that make that up, the sentiment, the target, the assessment of that target, the assessment sentiment. And it kind of breaks down into this kind of a data model I'll put in place. Now, I'm prepared there. I'm not a Power BI developer. So if you see stuff that's not quite up to code or something you wouldn't do, it's because it's kind of it was an attempt I made to kind of emphasize how easy it is to kind of get data analysis done by AI, and you can get a dashboard like the following. And the first thing I kind of think of is kind of going into and see, I want to see all the key phrases for 1-star reviews, for example. And you can see a count of all the key phrases that are said for all the 1-star reviews. And you can, even deeper, getting the opinion mining done, you can see for staff a lot more negative things I said than positive things. So let's dig into that a bit. Click staff, and it gives you all the reviews where staff have been spoke about or they've been brought up. And the opinion mining section over here, you can start to see all the assessments applied to staff. So you can see all the things that have been said about staff in that regard. And we possibly even find stuff that may be hygienically disgusting. If we go back to report and we can see that exact conversation, kind of review has been put up. It's an absolute palaver made only worse by incompetent and hygienically disgusting members of staff. So if I was working at Lidl, I'd dig in, kind of I can go and see with more ease of use and kind of zero in on these bad reviews where they are saying stuff about staff, etc. Even then, we could change the kind of date range as well, because that review was from like 2011, I believe. So we can change it to be like 2023 instead. So we want to just look at reviews that are more recent. It's good enough. And again, we can just look at the one-star reviews again. And this time we're seeing customer service is used like a lot more negative than positively. Have a click on that. And again, break it out and see kind of what's being said negatively and positively about that kind of that subject of customer service. And so you can get a really holistic view of the feelings from these reviews. They've been gathered for us by the AI. And you can also look at like fringe cases, such as like again. So if you want to look just at 5-star reviews where they've been negative in the sentiment. And you kind of dig in and where they're given a 5-star review, but they're maybe not saying the most nicest things about their stuff. So a negative assessment's been said, or it's a mixed review overall, but they've still given a 5-star review of that. So it's kind of digging in and saying, even though they're giving us a 5-star, they're not saying the best things about Lidl in general. It kind of gives that another avenue to kind of investigate, explore, and dig deeper into what these reviews are actually saying. So just to finish off the talk, hopefully that kind of emphasized how useful the AI service language you can be in terms of digging deeper into what I think usually we see like text beta is it is what it is on the surface, and we don't think to dig any deeper. So if you kind of enjoyed what I said go on the Pillfrog System website. That kind of it might have been gone through that a bit quickly, but I've got that 5-part blog series where you can go along and get a lot more in-depth information. I think I've got links in there to further reading you do on the topics, as well as like a step-by-step guide and how to put in place what I've shown you today. And again, the QR code will take you directly to my blog post site, thedatarhino.wordpress.com.